In particular, Oslo has changed a lot from being a dull city to become like a cosmopolitan city with a lot of music going on, a lot of fancy restaurants, a lot of new galleries have just been opened. So this is really going to be an art metropole also. And especially the new area now that they are developing down by the Opera House. That is really showing the innovation and Norway that we are also quite creative when it comes to Norwegian architecture. And many of our architects, they have won prizes all over the world, actually participated in competitions, and so we are indeed quite proud of our architecture. The diversity of this town is what I appreciate most, and we have some picturesque old parts, in the eastern section, and then also this new area now down along the seaside that we are just developing, and that is really, really future focused. And then, of course, also the green areas here in that we have all these facilities with Marka, as we call it, the outdoor life. When you think about Oslo, there is something far away in the distance, and then when they come here and then they experience that this is quite a lively and a modern city that is actually catching up with trends.
At Holmenkollen ski jump. There has been a ski jump here since the 19th century, and at that time it was just a quite small ski jump. It has been developed and it's been enlarged 19 times, and about 3 years ago they decided they had to build a new one. It was too dangerous for the jumpers. The windshield here is quite heavy. So they tear it down and build a very new ski jump made of steel. Use 1,000 tons of steel, the most modern ski jump in the world, and the only ski jump in the world made of steel. And this ski jump here is the entrance of the woodland that is surrounding Oslo. Norway have always been an outdoor people. Before we used skiing of necessity because we have a lot of snow, we just had to use skis to come around. Later we learned to ski just for joy.
The museum, the Viking Ship Museum here in Oslo, shows 3 ships. They were all found in the region of the southeast of Norway, which is the region of Oslo, a bit further down south. And that is, by the way, also one of the reasons they believe that Vikings were called Vikings because the name of this area back then was Vika, V-I-K-A. It's unique and special because it tells a story about the Vikings, and it's an old history. I mean, it's 1,000 years ago. The Vikings were Norwegian people from a period where Norwegians were powerful. Norway was a powerful nation. They were good shipbuilders, good sailors, which is one of the reasons why they succeeded so much in what they did. In these boats, people were buried. We don't know who these people are, but they were buried and well prepared for a life after death. So in addition to the people, they had all kinds of equipment you might need in a life. And thanks to these findings, we can say a lot about the Vikings and how they were lived like for 1,000 years ago.
The Open Air Museum is, you can get to know a lot of the different areas in Norway, like houses that are from the 13th century, the church that is also from the 13th century, and then you see the development in different areas, like if they were more rich, less rich, if the culture was coming before. And they all started when the Norwegians wanted to become independent. And then the Swedish Norwegian king started to collect houses that were in a bad state, so he rebuilt them inside his property that after became the Open Air Museum. And then this was growing, and now it has more than 150 houses, and you can get to know the way the farmers were living and how different it was from the rest of Europe, and about the open heart that is very special because you had to live with the house open so you could cook and have the heating at the same time. So it's different, you go from the past to the present. The Vigeland Park is an open-air park with 212 sculptures, 670 figures, and is the work of one man, Gustav Vigeland. the sculpture. Of course, he was working with lots of people, lots of sculptures, because otherwise it was impossible. And he wanted to show us the cycle of life, from the beginning to the end, from birth to death. So then you can see very explicit what he wanted to show, or less explicit if it's the case of in the case of the monolith. And the park is very beautiful with lots of flowers, very green, it's the biggest in Oslo, and the population use it a lot. Running, walking, doing lots of things, even skiing if we have a lot of ski during winter. So it's a very nice park, and for the tourists wonderful because they can get to know the work, enjoy the day and so on.
Vigeland Park, the sculpture park, means a lot to the people of Oslo because it is not only a sculpture park, it is also a public park. It's in the middle of the city, so for the people who doesn't have a garden to go and visit, you can, I mean, it's quite free. You can go here and you can go here 24 hours a day, so it means a lot to people.
Throughout the course of time, Berlin's always been impressive. The population is 3.7 million today. It was larger than that before World War II. People just left. They weren't killed during the war, they just left. And compared to Paris, for example, their population is 2 million, so there you have another 1.7 million in Berlin.
Berlin at the beginning of World War II was still okay, so there wasn't a war over here. It was like World War I, nothing happened in the country itself. Things that started were that people started to disappear, especially Jewish people were either kicked out of the country or neighbors started to disappear, especially later on from 1941 and 1942 on. And then with the war in the East attacking the Soviet Union in summer 1941, people noticed that a lot of the food was actually sent to the Eastern Front, and this is when also in Berlin the black market started. People were not starving, but they noticed that especially alcohol, cigarettes, coffee, those things came a bit short. And then the war was actually entering Berlin, especially the air raid started in autumn 1943. At nighttime, the British, daytime, the Americans, that's when really the war was arriving over here. And of course the worst bit was the last 14 days a battle for Berlin when 2.5 million Soviet soldiers were facing Berlin, 1.5 million came into the city. That's when the street fighting was coming on. And then for the female population especially, the weeks after World War II, because the Soviets, they were allowed to be on their own 2 months over here till the Western Allies would come to Berlin. That was a deal that they had beforehand with Stalin. And that's when really Berlin got in trouble. So Sachsenhausen concentration camp, the one that we visited today, was built in 1936 and in use by the Nazis till 1945. There was a smaller camp in the same place. The town is called Oranienburg from 1933 on. Sounds quite early. It was quite early, but that was not for Jews, for example, or for European gypsies. That was mainly at the beginning for political opponents, socialists and communists. They were locked away by the Nazis after Hitler became Chancellor on the 30th of January 1933. And up to 1939, around 90% of the prisoners in the concentration camp Sachsenhausen, they were actually Germans. That changed significantly with the beginning of World War II. There is not a straight line between a concentration and a death camp, but you would say, if you want to explain it, concentration camp would be more a prison/forced labor camp. Death camps that actually existed in what is nowadays Poland in the east kill everybody. But in the concentration camp in Germany, people were killed, thousands, 10,000s of people, especially between 1939 and 1942. Then it was, to talk with the Nazi language, sourced out. Death was sourced out to Eastern Europe. But when the Red Army was coming closer from the east, from summer 1944, death was brought back to the concentration camps. Some of the camps are still there to visit them. It's really important because the main idea that the Nazis had, winning or losing the war, actually was that nobody should actually notice what they did over there. It should be a prison, some people die, but nobody should notice that they on purpose killed millions of people. And still nowadays, every now and then, not very often, you hear some voices saying, yeah, no, that's not true, or whatever. So it was true, those camps are still there. And it's really important that people go there with it, especially school groups. We saw a lot of school groups today over there, just to see, yes, it's there, there's a lot of history about it, a lot of research done, especially since 1990, since the fall of the Iron Curtain also, because a lot of the camps were in the former Eastern Europe. And the most important thing is not to understand maybe everything, but just know that this happened. There was a camp, thousands, 10,000, up to millions if you put all together, people were killed, and it really did happen. And if something similar starts to happen somewhere in the world, hopefully enough people know that they heard about a similar story and it was the most dreadful thing they've ever heard about, and that hopefully a lot of people start to protest against it before it's too late. Berlin Wall was built in August 1961 was mainly to avoid that too many, especially young people, would go from East Berlin or Germany to West Berlin or West Germany. Between 1945 and 1961, when the Berlin Wall was done, 3 million East Germans left their country. 50% were under 25 years old, mainly because they noticed that there's not really freedom of speech. People were also in jail, even sometimes the same people who were in jail under the Nazi regime. Socialists, they suddenly ended up in prison under the officially socialist country, which more or less was Stalinism, also became a dictatorship. There were only 3 elections once, and the economy was really in bad conditions. West Germany, so was West Berlin, supported by the United States and the British, especially with the Marshall Plan. The economy was getting way better and you could travel. So the inner German border was already shut in '52 and people noticed, oh my God, it's not a good sign that they shut that one, and that's why, especially after '52 to '61, more and more people got out. And for East Germany, it was the only chance. Would have been, okay, change the system completely, which was not possible, or make sure that people can't get out. If not, the country would not exist soon. The wall was there for 28 years. Especially for the Berliners, a war through the city. A lot of families got divided, friendships, of course. It was a weird situation because the inner German border was on the countryside. It's a bit easier to build a border over there, but through a real city and around West Berlin. When you look at it, it looked a bit like the West Berliners were walled in. The wall was going around West Berlin because Berlin was in the Soviet sector, West Berlin like an island in the Red Sea. But as a West Berliner, you could always fly out, drive out. There were special transit highways where you could drive through East Germany by car. I remember that. I was 10 years old when the wall came down. And my parents had a holiday house in West Germany, so every 14 days, 3 weeks, we were actually leaving West Berlin via checkpoint Bravo. So we are checkpoint Charlie now, so it's a bit further southwest. Getting checked and then drive through East Germany by car. We were not allowed to leave those highways, and after 100 miles, 170 kilometers, you come to the inner German border, checkpoint Alpha. They would search through your car, so you should not hide somebody or something, checking your IDs, and then Sunday night the same way back. So that's what I remember. Not the wall really itself. I was born in southwest Berlin, but mainly traveling through East Germany. And the wall came down more or less by accident, at least at the time. On the 9th of November 1989. I wasn't even in Berlin actually, I was playing hockey a bit further out in West Germany, but I remember the first time we were allowed to walk through the Brandenburg Gate. That was in December 1989. We were not the only people who wanted to do that. There were hundreds of thousands of people, you couldn't even move. That was the first time for a lot of families that they actually met beforehand, but they could meet at the Brandenburg Gate. A lot of older people, especially from the east and west, their dream was to walk through the Brandenburg Gate. Nobody knew how long the wall would be up for, so there were plans for a longer time, of course. Honecker said at some stage, the man in charge of East Germany, the wall will stand for another 100 years. Then it was only for another few months, but who would have known that?
For me, the Reichstag is sort of the highlight of Berlin, and it shows as a brilliant example the transformation since 1989. So it's a historical building, but with a new modern contemporary inside. It was built for us, the people, the German people, and for the first time perhaps since 1945, I think, with German reunification, we've managed to demonstrate to the world that Germans have changed, that they're not the same, that they can be peace-loving, that they can be one of our strong leaders in the European Union, and that we're not driven by aggression and brutality.
And for me personally, the Reichstag is just this enlightenment. It's open, it's light, it's airy, it's transparent. The idea is that we can check and control what's going down on below. There's a glass ceiling between the plenary hall and us, so the Germans can more or less look down and see and check it. It's a utopian idea, I guess, to control, but it's a good idea. There's actually a glass when we come out of the Reichstag. You go past the plenary hall, you see the blue chairs where the members of parliament sit. So they're confronted, we're faced with each other.
There's only one tour that takes our guests into the Reichstag, the Parliament building of Berlin, of Germany, and that's the Ultimate Berlin Tour. And what makes that amazing is this dome that was built back in the 1990s when the Reichstag was being restored after the damage done during World War II. Now it still remains the Parliament building of Berlin, but this dome, you can walk through all the way up to the top and get these wonderful panoramas looking out over the Spree River and some of the taller buildings of Berlin.
What's interesting is with Tempelhof that it was only closed 8 years ago. It was a working airport until then, with smaller planes landing in next to the airport of Tegel and Schönefeld. So we have 3 airports altogether. Tempelhof was originally built in the 1930s as the main hub airport under the Nazis. German Lufthansa was founded there, but after the war, only Pan Am, British Airways or Air France was allowed to fly into Tempelhof Airport. Famous it became throughout the airlift 1948-49 when West Berlin was blockaded by the Soviets trying to force the Western Allies to leave West Berlin, and Lucius Clay set up this airlift that lasted for around 11 months. So it really showed how the Western world felt with the West Berliners and that they wanted to rescue them, come to their aid. In consequence of that, the 2 Germanys were founded in 1949. Many West Berliners were very much against closing Tempelhof Airport because for them it had such sweet memories of the airlift, of the pilots dropping chocolate, candies and raisins to the children waiting alongside the fence. My mother-in-law tasted her first chocolate. It was a Hershey's bar of milk chocolate because she was 6 years old and she was given it to her she was handed it by one of these pilots. So West Berliners have very strong sentimental memories. It meant the Western world is not leaving, forgetting West Berlin, they're coming to their aid and rescue. So, and then we were asked in the referendum, what do you want to happen with Tempelhof Airport? Should it be should the airstrip behind it be rebuilt? Is it supposed to stay as it is? What's allowed? And most Berliners, the majority, voted for it to become a park, to let it be as it is. So we still have the airstrip, which is used to cycle, it's used for inline skating, you're allowed to have barbecues, you'll have little private gardens, cooperative gardens where you can plant your own fruit and vegetable, you can grow your herbs, whatever you like there. So it's been an area that's been very much accepted by the Berliners. For me, Berlin is really sort of the essence of Germany today. It's sort of condensed down to what Germany is about today. So in this very positive way, transformation, change, openness as well, and willing to see different groups of people arrive here. And the focus obviously has been for the past 28 years on the reconstruction of the eastern part. And I think Germany is so well off, we've done brilliantly, and we can be proud of us, but also of the people, you know, but pride in a positive, not nationalistic way. That's what I want to maintain.
Rostock is pretty old compared to German standards, dating back to the 11th century and used to be a Slavic village. That's why it's also got the Slavic name. Rostock means broadening of a river. And then very close connected to that is the seaside town of Warnemünde, which is the town where the ships on the harbor. And this was also used to be a Slavic village. And in the 13th century, Rostock bought the city of Warnemünde. And since then, it's basically some kind of a suburb of the city of Rostock. We look then also to a much more modern building, which is the main building of the University of Rostock, which is still quite old, dating back to 1419, but had then also an explanation about German university life, and have seen all the different faculties and visited the fountain in the middle of the city. first the gate of Kröpelin, and connected to that was the old city wall, which used to span the whole city of Rostock for about 3 kilometers. And now still a big part of it is still remaining. And for example, a very typical feature of the architecture up here are the holes in the walls which were used for the scaffolding. So we learned about that, how the building were actually erected in the 13th century, and then why the wall looks the way it looks, for example with the big bows, so that the soldiers were able to get to the arms very quickly when there were enemies approaching, because Rostock, as part of the Hanseatic trade connection, gained a lot of wealth in the medieval days, and because of that it was much more likely to be attacked by enemies, and was attacked quite often. And so they built the city wall and also had the specific parts of the wall where they would store the weapons directly at the wall. We had St. Mary's Church, which was built in the 14th century and has a long history, especially because it was found and built Catholic, but in the process of the Reformation changed to Protestant and Lutheran, and by now we have these different styles in the church as well as on the outside of the church. So it's a pretty special one, especially with the highlight, which is the astronomical clock dating back to 1472 with its original clockwork. So we have a lot of very old and ancient history in the city of Rostock that we have seen today. We have so many ancient buildings and such a unique medieval history and medieval city sites that we can visit, because we are lucky that not a lot of it got destroyed in the war, and everything is renovated and looks very nice. We also have the big divergency of the latest chapters of German history that are all visible here. So not only the medieval part, we also have the Cold War part, the part afterwards. So all these kinds of things can be mixed into the city of Rostock and the historic sites that we see. The people can get a very good impression of the old Germany, of the old Rostock, as well as the new and modern one, which is now open to everybody and welcomes the people.
Schwerin is a beautiful little town, and you will not find the big crowded places that you have in major cities. It's nice, it's calm, and you can enjoy the peace, especially when you're right next to the beautiful castle, which is definitely the main highlight. There is no doubt about that. You can go on a nice lake cruise, enjoy the sea breeze there, have a look at the castle, just walk through the little narrow streets which then take you back into medieval times. Schwerin is actually the capital of our federal state. It has almost 100,000 people living here, and the market square, this is which is the center of the town, of course, where the main life is happening. And that is one of the oldest and one of the biggest market squares that you will find in the north of Germany. And there are lots of nice buildings to see. For example, the town hall, which was redesigned by the city architect here, which is Mr. Demmler, who, by the way, also designed the castle. And then there is another market hall building, lots of old buildings, half-timbered style houses that are actually under protection nowadays. And well, from this market square, you can walk into every direction into Schwerin. This palace is dating back to the 19th century, the way it looks actually today. That was built in the 19th century, but the place itself is already dating back to early medieval times. While nowadays it has a bit more than 600 rooms, which are mainly used by the parliament. So this is used by the parliament of our federal state here of Mecklenburg-Western Pomerania. They have their offices in there. And 1/3 roundabout is used as a museum to show us how the Duke lived in earlier days with his family and visitors that he had. Very impressive is the throne room in there, where he expected his guests as well, and the nice library too, which is also used for weddings nowadays. The palace is actually surrounded by lots of beautiful gardens. The one right next to it, that is we call that the castle garden, and that was in earlier days used as the kitchen's garden from the ducal family, and it is definitely open to the public. Everybody can go through the garden even if the castle is closed. You can still walk through the beautiful garden, and the big Baroque garden right behind, which if you cross the bridge, you're basically right in there. This is a garden that was built in the 18th century, and it's also open for the public all year long. You can just walk through there, sit on a bench, relax, enjoy the birds singing, and yeah, have a cup of coffee maybe, or just walking around with your friends.
Hi, yeah, my name is Christopher, and as of right now we are in Wismar in the north of Germany. Well, Wismar is a very old Hanseatic city. It was founded in the 1200s, early 1200s, and is a city with a very well-preserved inner city core, and has very old historic buildings made entirely out of bricks, so you will find brick architecture all around us, and it's the main feature of this place, of this entire region. Well, Wismar is a very small, condensed city. It has less people living there than, let's say, Rostock, for instance, which is much more spread out and bigger. And Wismar is cozy, you know, a small town, but incredibly old at that, so packed with history. And you have a very small space, huge churches left and right, and it's just beautiful to look at. Well, in Wismar you have everything in one place that you would expect from a Hanseatic city. So everything you need, the sea, fish, cathedrals, old history and a relaxed atmosphere. So everything in one place.
So in Bad Doberan we are visiting always the Minster of Doberan. That is a monastery. The monastery was built by the Cistercians. They were already in this region in the 12th century, and they started to build the monastery in the 12th century in Bad Doberan. Of course, it takes 100 or 150 years to build this big church now, because it is a church, a Lutheran church, since 1552. That's when the first Protestant priest started his job there, and before it was an abbey, so a monastery of Catholic monks. The nuns of this Cistercian were living always in monasteries, so in convents inside the city, like in the city center of Rostock, for example, and the monks always outside. So in this case, here were no city of Bad Doberan. It was only the monastery 15 miles away from a city center. Molly train is very famous here in this region, working almost over 150 years, round about 150 years. So it's very famous because it's not only a tourist train in the summer, it is included in the public transportation system. So, for example, to Heiligendamm, the White Village, and Kühlungsborn here on the coast, another resort, you can arrive only by bus or with the Molly train, this historic train. In the summer, they are working always two trains on the same time, and they meet each other in the middle of the way at Heiligendamm, the only place where we have two tracks. We have to wait always for the second train, and then we can go straight on to the end. In Kühlungsborn. Kühlungsborn is a resort, and we can see in the buildings here are quite new. They are not from the Middle Age. They are the oldest buildings are from the late 19th century. That was the time when Kühlungsborn was founded by the rich people of Germany to have a second home. They built here a second home for the summer, like a summer residence. So please come and visit our region here, the federal state of Mecklenburg, West Pomerania. We have here very wide beaches, and they are most beautiful and most famous beach area for all over Germany.
Hello, my name is Laura and I work as a guide in Tallinn. I was born here, I have lived all my life here in this country, and I like talking about this country, so I think I have some stories for you.
The main reason the Old Town's a good attraction is because we've got a lot of the original medieval buildings still here remaining. The Old Town is divided into the upper and lower levels. In the upper town it's more sort of power institutions and parliament, and in the lower town there's sort of more of the locals and the busy life. It's all under UNESCO nowadays, which means that they need to look after it. So yeah, people just have the authentic sites, just pretty much how they looked like 400, 500, 600 years ago.
Tallinn becoming a very popular destination now, visited by many cruise ships, but also ordinary passengers coming with the regular traffic. Per year about 4 million visitors, and I have to say that many of the people who come here first with a cruise ship for a short visit come back later for a longer stay. That's what they themselves say. We are guiding somebody in winter and they say, you know, we were here for a short visit, we decided to come back, and that makes us very happy.
To the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, which is the Orthodox cathedral. So that, maybe compared to some other buildings, is newish for Estonia, as it was established in the beginning of the 20th century. So it's just roughly over 100 years old. But a beautiful church, so I think those of our group who went in really enjoyed it. And because we've got our population, roughly 1/3 is Russian, then we obviously have a few Russian Orthodox cathedrals in town as well. And then we also saw the Dome Church, which, as a contrast to the Orthodox one, is considered to be one of the oldest, dating back to the 13th century, which is currently now originally a Catholic and a Lutheran one.
We take it for granted that it's safe, secure, people who come to visit, they feel and see that it's something special. But it is a peaceful country. Estonians are also peaceful, so we welcome everybody who likes to visit us.
Hermitage Museum is one of the largest museums of the world, and it's located in the old buildings, and the oldest and the largest of them is the Winter Palace, built by Empress Elizabeth in 1750s. It's a great building, and then a few more buildings were added in the course of history. The Hermitage Museum for the first time. In first few minutes we get involved into going through an X-ray, security, tickets, turnstiles, and then quite of a sudden people get into the Rastralis gallery, and then the first sight is the impressive ambassador staircase, which is the main staircase of the palace, and it's a huge, impressive interior in Russian Baroque style, all made of white Carrara marble, expensive Italian marble used in every royal palace in Europe too. And there is a lot of gold and windows and mirrors opposite to each other and making the space looking even bigger. And people are always getting impressed and forget about everything, start taking pictures, and this is really beautiful. And I would say, even being a tour guide and visiting it many times, I'm not getting used to it. The collection of the Hermitage Museum was started by the imperial family, but in the meanwhile all the noble families also kept collecting things, collecting pieces of art, and after the revolution of 1917 all these collections were taken together to form one of the largest collections of the world. At the moment the collection of the Hermitage Museum totals up to 3 million exhibits, and on our tour we actually see the highlights, the best from the best of this collection, and this covers the Western European painting collection, including Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Raphael, and also we see the impressive interiors of the Winter Palace and museum buildings of the Hermitage, and we enjoy the atmosphere of one of the greatest art museums of the world. If to talk about the key things in the Hermitage collection, I would say that the basis of our collection is the Western European paintings, and what everybody is expecting to see in the Hermitage collection's Rembrandt. We have a great collection of Rembrandt paintings. Rembrandt is the most popular and the highest paid artist of the 17th century who lived in Amsterdam, and we have a collection of paintings representing different periods of his career. This mythological subject of DNA, which was violated in 1986, and it's a great restoration work, and the real pearl and the highlight of the collection is the Return of the Prodigal Son. And I know so many people were just coming, the first thing they were asking, will we see the Prodigal Son? And we did. Peterhof also has a beautiful palace, but the main thing on Peterhof is the park, which is decorated with 150 fountains. And these fountains are world known, built back in the beginning of the 1800s. They still work with no single pump, with natural water flow coming from the natural spring, and water coming out all day long, and the tallest and the biggest of the fountain cascades having the water jet of 17 meters high and 115 more water jets and gilded sculptures, thousands of them. And when you get to the lower park of Peterhof, you never want to get out of there. You want to stay there for all your life. It's a very beautiful atmosphere, and it's very much for individual exploration, just to sit on a bench and to smell it, to feel it, and to enjoy the endless fountains appearing at every corner, all different, including the tricky fountains or sun fountain, all surrounded, all moved by water. No electricity, nothing like this is used, only natural gravity and the work of the engineers of the past.
Hello, I'm Javier Esteban and I'm a Helsinki guide, Finland guide, and I came originally from Spain. I have lived here 30 years. Helsinki is the capital of Finland. It has been so for 200 years. It became capital with the Russian Tsars in 1812. One of the most typical things of Finland is silence. To experience silence and tranquility in Helsinki is a good example when you are traveling around.
On the main square that we call Senate Square, because the old imperial Senate was raised there early 19th century, and that would be what we could call as old part of Helsinki, old town. From there, just a block away, we have the colorful market, open-air market and waterfront. Helsinki, the Sibelius Park, in honor of our national composer, who is known for his 7 symphonies and the Finlandia hymn. And there is a contemporary monument, work of a female artist, Mrs. Eila Hiltunen, consisting of 600 tubes that are of stainless steel. And this modern work has a name in Latin, Passio Musicae, passion for music. So it was raised in 1967, right by the water on the west side of the city. The most visited spot of Helsinki, it's the so-called rock church, or church of Temppeli Aukio in Finnish, meaning temple square. And there, in the 60s, a Lutheran church was hewed into the bedrocks.
And the rock, the Church of the Rock, it's a very modern design. When you hear, we are going to a church, you don't quite expect what you are going to find. You walk into the rock, and you are covered with copper and light and the granite, the rock. So the experience is a very nice experience that you feel inside this rock church.
Winterland of Finland. We have summer outside, but when you go into the winterland, you have ice and snow, real ice and snow. You feel the cold temperature, you get warm clothes, otherwise you couldn't be there with your summer clothes, of course. There you can try the husky ride, kick sledge, sliding down the hill. There are a lot of beautiful ice statues, or for instance Santa Claus, you have a reindeer with a sledge. You have the Santa studio, and of course you get a drink, the Finlandia vodka or soft drink. This is very special. Everybody loves it. Both children love it, they like trying to kick sledge, sliding downhill, and even adults say they feel like a child again because everybody can do it. It's safe to do everything over there.
And I'm one of the many guides who work for FATSE, and I work in the FATSE Visiting Center that is situated here in Finland at Vaarala, which is in Vantaa. And we have about 50,000 people coming to see us as every single year, or we had before we came to this building here. And they kind of made us this new brand amazing visiting center because we didn't have any space for take all of those people who wanted to come and see us every single year. So now that we opened this new visiting center on the 17th of September last year, after that we've been able to have here about over 10,000 people to coming to see us every single month. So it's been crazy, but crazy good. You can also spend your birthdays here. It's really popular in Finland for the kids' birthday parties. They come here, they decorate cupcakes, they dip them in melted chocolate. We have milk chocolate and white chocolate, and then they decorate them with different kind of candies. And of course that we are here at the chocolate factory. Of course, in every single tour and every single birthdays and everything, you can come and eat as much of candy as you want. Fatse now has 50,000 people working for us. We operate in 8 different countries and we export about 45 different countries. And now we have 3 factories that make all our goodies, and they are all making in Finland. We have here in Vantaa, we make all our chocolates and the cookies. In Lappeenranta, which is a city in Finland, we make all our sugar candies and licorice. And then we have a chewing gum factory. So we make all our xylitol pastilles and chewing gums in Karkkila, which means in Candy Town in English. So it's really cool. But then we have about 50 bakeries, 3 mills, I think 1,200 restaurants like Amita, which can be situated in companies or schools or nursery homes or anything that is like, you just go there and buy your daily meal, and it's usually really healthy. So it's like we're trying to get people to eat more healthier and eat more green and everything, and people love that. The Face was founded by a man named Fatse, and he was just 18 years old when he wanted to become a sugar confectioner. But at the time you couldn't study that in Finland, so he went to abroad. He went to Paris, Berlin and St. Petersburg to study for that. And he was just 25 years old when he first opened his first cafeteria in the Helsinki city center. And that is in Kluuvikatu, which is still the place exists now, and it's really popular. And you can still, if you come now to Finland as a tourist or something, you could go and enjoy all of our lovely cakes and pastries and candies and even ice cream there. So it's a really nice place to visit, even for the winters and the summers. But after a few years, he opened his first cafeteria. It's like he opened his first factory in Helsinki city as well. And because people were eating so much candy, so it's like after Karl Fatse, his son Sven Fatse came the head of the company. He was the one who brought it in here that we are now today. And we came here because there wasn't almost anything here at the time, and we could build as big a factory as we wanted here. So since that day, or it's like on the the 60s, we've been here. And since the 65, we have these tours in this area, and they're still getting bigger and bigger, and we're going faster and faster.
Borgo, where we have been just this morning, it's a beautiful town, a small town, only a little bit over half an hour away from Helsinki, but it has kept its medieval street with wooden houses by the river, and everybody that comes here doing the visit of Helsinki, they feel at ease, they feel at peace when they arrive to Borgo, because it's a very nice little place to visit.
I like in Helsinki the the maritime feeling, the coast and the granite and the rocks and the nature, because in Finland, and especially in our capital, city of 500,000 people, you are all the time in contact with the nature, and it's very, very easy to do that. You don't need to go far at all. It's surrounding us. We have a green belt surrounding the city, and then the Baltic Sea on the other side with it.
City Hall, that's the main administrative center. Most well-known event taking place in the City Hall, that is of course the Nobel Prize banquet, every year on the 10th of December.
Vasa Museum, and that's located on one of the islands called Djurgården. And in the Vasa we have the original ship, the warship from 1628. It was built and destroyed in 1628. It sank on its maiden voyage after 20 minutes sailing. And the good thing that it sank so close to Stockholm was that we could find it, we could retrieve it. And now it's in the museum, and it's a very popular museum, very interesting.
Royal Palace, which is the official residence of the Swedish royal family. They don't live in the palace permanently, but it's the official residence where you have all the major things going on, the state visits, the audiences for the king, the big evening functions. You can say it's the workplace. The whole royal court works from there, and they have their offices. You can almost say that we have an everyday monarchy here. They are very, very down to earth. And there is a big difference between all the Scandinavian royalties and the British ones. That is that ours has not been crowned. That means they're never ever allowed to wear the crowns on their heads. They're still there by official gathering as a symbol for the monarchy, but then it's put on a little cushion next to them.
Island, which we refer to as the Old Town, Gamla stan in Swedish, 1252. And the reason why we have a year is that that was the first time we saw the word Stockholm in writing. So probably there was a town here or a village already in the 1100s. But this was all there was. So everything else we've been seeing today was countryside. It wasn't Stockholm, it wasn't considered the town. And there was a wall around this medieval town that protected the people in here.
Describe Stockholm the best? Well, it's old and new meeting. It is water and land. It is parkland, built up areas. It's something for everybody's taste.